Hello, I'm FPX Toycat, and are you excited for the Deep Dark and the Warden? Because if so, there was some exciting news that came out about both those features this week. It came out from King B Dogs, who is the developer of both features, because he says, if you could choose, would you prefer to flesh out the Deep Dark as a biome more or the Warden as a mob? Which is more important to you? And my guess would have been that people would say the Warden. The Warden is the thing people focus on more. However, as you can tell from this Twitter poll he decided to do, actually the majority of people, 59.5%, actually prefer that the Deep Dark would get more focus compared to just 25.5% preferring the Warden. This is just a quarter of respondents to the poll, with another 15% saying show results, which I decided to do neutrality here, although personally I'm very torn between both options. And so it's interesting because he then says, color me surprised that most people chose biome. That is definitely not the vibe I got from everyone asking about the work we're doing. I wonder if it's just people know more about the Warden, so there's an element of mystery, and that totally is it, right? I mean, the Warden you imagine in your brain is already fully formed, whereas the Deep Dark, it would be really cool if there were other things in there to actually lure us in there to go in with the Warden. And with that said, I'll actually go back to this first question because I kind of skipped the second half, which is, if so, would you like to do a Warden hunting stream when the update comes out? And of course, who doesn't want to hunt down the Wardens? However, now is a good opportunity to remind you of one of the interesting facts about the Warden, and that is that he is not going to be intended to be killed. Because King B Dog says, my genuine fear, the Warden goes the way of the Phantoms, where people find it cool at first and then hate them as they get in your way during mining sessions. I'm doing a lot of design work to prevent this, but it's still a fear. Is it going to have a drop? Are you still planning the not meant to be killed thing? Says Stark. And then King B Dogs responds, no drops. That's right, there is not going to be a drop. There's not going to be an official reason to kill the Warden. The Warden is just a natural disaster. You are better off avoiding it than killing it. This means that it's not really like the Ender Dragon or the Wither bosses, even though it's supposedly meant to be just as hard to kill as both of them, if not harder. And so we're in a really interesting place with the Warden, which is great. But let's quickly, before going into the next question, remind you that greater than 99% of Warden attacks happen to people who aren't subscribed to the IBX Toycat YouTube channel. Did you know that subscribing to channels that you enjoy is one of the best ways to help them out, because it gives the YouTube algorithm that little bit of a push that maybe you'd like to see more of their videos. And that's why I recommend you doing all the great channels that you like, and also on mine. And so with that said, let's move into the third question today, because Outfreak28 asks, what is the Deep Dark? And there's a lot of questions like this in the comment section, and I realize that, every single week we're talking about these brand new exciting Minecraft features, but some people hear Deep Dark and they think, wait, don't we have that deep slate material that's very dark right now? Oh, that's why are people so excited about it? So the Deep Dark is the brand new biome coming in 1.18, alongside Lush Caves being fully fleshed out, and alongside Dripstone Caves becoming a real proper biome. And the Deep Dark is the most exciting of all of the new biomes though, because it's meant to be absolutely terrifying because of the Warden that is contained within. This is also meant to be the way that you'll get these skulk sensors, which are of course very exciting because it's a new form of redstone tools, and also there are going to be chests that are worth dealing with the Wardens. We saw that in the Minecon live trailer for last year, but although this footage you're seeing in the background is from last year, it's very likely it'll be entirely different by the time we see it, which is why everyone's so excited to see what the Deep Dark and the Warden actually do look like. And so with that said, I want to move into the next question, because so you think people are going to travel to the high mountain elevations for emerald ore? Lol, if that's the case, what would be the point of trading with villagers? Lol. And first of all, I have my doubts that you're actually laughing out loud at two separate points during that comment. I don't think that both of those lols really are literal representations of what you're doing. And second of all, the point of emerald ore being so visible is not that it's a direct replacement of trading with villagers, but it's another way of getting emeralds if you still do want those goodies from the villagers. Because emeralds are pretty much exclusively a currency at this point. However, they're going to be findable in the world. If for some reason you just hate trading, bread or wheat or whatever with villagers, and instead you just want to buy things straight from them, you could go to the mountain and you could find emeralds. And in case you don't believe that and you're like, well, it's never going to be enough to make it worthwhile, here is a peek at the latest experimental snapshot. And inside that snapshot, this is the first stony peaks that I came across. It is a lovely little stone tinge to the mountain. Obviously there's more of this hidden underneath the grass, but this is directly accessible. And as you can see, there's not just huge veins of coal, a vein of iron, and also a couple veins of emeralds, because this is actually a wonderful way to find some emeralds, or to find 2 emeralds, as it appears right now. But let me give you a little peek at what the mountain looks like once you remove the stone. If you were to go strip mining, how many emeralds could you find here, is always the question. Well, I mean, if there's one thing to learn from this, it's that coal is ridiculously abundant in the mountains, and then the current snapshot clearly emeralds are bugged. But the idea is meant to be that you can find enough emeralds to do your basic trades with. And who needs more than 3 emeralds anyway? So, you know what? I agree with the guy who says lol a lot, that right now, you might as well just trade, but the idea is that you shouldn't have to trade. It should be one of the pathways, maybe the best pathway, but just like many things in Minecraft, there are lots of ways to end up with your first bit of wood. There are lots of ways to end up with sticks. You might not believe me, but think about dead bushes, think about the fact, like a jungle over here, think about bamboo forests, if we can find one. I don't think we can find one. This is such a tiny jungle, it's got 3 jungle trees. Is that enough to call it a jungle now? Whatever, I think we're spending enough time focusing on the minutiae here, when the grander point is that Minecraft has lots of different ways to do things. So with that said, let's get back to the questions and the answers. Is that what we do here on Q&A Saturday? I think it might be. Nah, definitely Housefire jokes. Which accidentally transitions us very nicely into this next question from Carlay. Is it Carly, but like an interesting way to say it? Whatever. So they say, have you been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD? The executive dysfunction you're describing sounds like a dopamine deficiency. If you find time something of a mess in general, difficulty meeting appointments, losing track, task-related time management, it might be worth checking with a doc. Individuals with ADD don't get the same dopamine rewards in the brain that pushes others along, and the temporal lobe of an ADD person is formed differently. ADD individuals experience time in a different way from most people. So this is a lot of things in one comment. A lot of that's educational, so hopefully anyone out there, if you went, wait, that's always me, maybe you should at least go to a doctor and ask them to see if they'll diagnose you. But in case you're curious about me in particular, I haven't been diagnosed with those two things, and I'm always very, very cautious of calling yourself something you haven't been diagnosed. Self-diagnosis is a huge problem on the internet and can lead to just as many problems as it can purportedly solve. And actually, if you're self-diagnosing, then you're not really getting help anyway. You're just saying, oh, you know what, the world needs to change because I'm special and I've got this thing that is definitely real and I've just come up with myself. And so I'm very cautious of that because a lot of the time that is the case. But the interesting thing is I went to a doctor because I was like, so, you know, I'm just theorizing maybe I have this thing because I have all the symptoms and blah, blah, blah. And she was just like, I have no idea how to diagnose that. And then I tried a second time and it also went nowhere. And so interestingly enough, I know one person who's been diagnosed with ADD and they got diagnosed by accident because they had to pay something like £2,000 because they needed to be diagnosed with things for a court case. Basically, because to be able to like legally prove that you have something, you need to be medically proved. But the people who get the medical proof that's also going to be legal proof are very, very expensive. And so, like, long story short, mental health care is not very good in the country that I live in. And so that is why I have not been diagnosed or intend to be diagnosed. And I feel like with most things, it's like, well, if you can't get a medical solution, it's all about working out the lifestyle solution, right? Like, assuming you can't physically, mentally, or whatever way you want to call it, change yourself, then you need to work out how to, you know, like actually adapt into the situations you're going to be in. If you are in lots of situations that you find are hard because of that, then you have to work on it. And so, like, I find time-related management hard, but also, you know, I just put like a ton of hours into things that I'm really, really passionate about. And so I'm lucky that I work with those things that I'm so passionate about that I'll pour too much time into. You know, it's the, you know, like, which is just as big a problem as putting too little time into something in the end. But like, it's a great temporary solution. Just like appointments, like just have as few of them in your life as you humanly can. I feel like very few people benefit from most of the appointments in their life. Same with like meetings and stuff. Just like, you know, no. I've had so many things where it's like, oh yeah, we'll just schedule a call for 5 p.m. Friday. It's like, no, you will tell me now or we will be done with this interaction. And it's, I feel like, you know, in some ways you change the world around you very slightly, and in some ways you alter to be in the world around you. But I think that's more important than working out the diagnosis, when you live in a country at least where you're not in control of how that works. But again, interesting stories of the UK healthcare system. If you want another fun one, because this is appointment related, so I called up my doctor, my GP, my general practitioner, and because I'm in a new area, which means I have a highly rated, you know, it's exciting. It's a new doctor, it's highly rated. And I was like, hey, can I have an appointment? And they're like, if it's important, we can see you in 3 weeks. And I was like, okay then. And they've asked to meet me in 3 weeks. And Let's see if I remember that. I put it on my calendar, but there's lots of things on my calendar I don't remember. Speaking of things I don't remember, who watches you clear out oceans, lol? Doesn't seem that great, to be honest. And Frigga the Frightening, that's a good question. As it turns out, right now, 53,369 people have watched me drain an ocean, and that number is growing every single day. So I'm glad people are liking the mega project. Tonight, we're going to be continuing on with part 5. We crossed the 10-hour threshold of time spent draining this ocean, and it's going to get much better, unless I forget that appointment that I'm mentally setting with all of you, in which case I can blame it on something that has never been diagnosed, but I can be very annoying about, because you know what? That's the way the internet works. Speaking of the way the internet works, Troll King 9001 says, "Hey Toy Cat, if you love America so much, why not move there? You know what? If you love Minecraft so much, why don't you just marry it?" But the more serious part of this question is I did live in America for about 6 months during the pandemic, so maybe not the most representative slice of America, but I really enjoyed it, actually. I really, really enjoyed living in Las Vegas. I liked living in New York. It was very fun as a city, so why don't I permanently live in one of those two cities that I like, or just keep moving around like I was doing before? So, ignoring the fact that, like, it gets very expensive to rent short-term accommodation over such a long period. If you want, there's a great third channel video, Andrew's video, about just how expensive the apartment was. If you want to drop your jaw at like how much you can spend on some walls to live in for a few months, then you can go look at that video. But long story short, it's expensive, and so have to settle down roots somewhere. And where to settle down roots? The UK or the United States? The United States is significantly cheaper in terms of taxes, and because the healthcare thing's not bundled into taxes, I could actually, you know, go out and get one where the doctor doesn't just say, "I don't know how to diagnose that, so goodbye." You know, there's probably a lot of interesting things there. Realistically, I think I would save money living in the United States, and it would be great in the short term. I think spending a year or two there would be the dream. However, just like the dream, I know it will turn out to be fraudulent and not legitimate, but just like the, you know, like any dream, it's like, okay, in the long run it has big ramifications. The biggest one is if you ever become a citizen, then the problem is that, like, once you're an American citizen, you don't unbecome one without going through a really long process. And if you are still an American citizen, even if you live in another country, you get double taxed on your income, because America is the only country in the world that takes your income after you leave there. So that's something that I'm, like, worried about. Like, I don't want to make terrible financial decisions for me in the future if I can avoid them. And also, I feel like the UK is a more stable base, you know, a place to just, like, have and live in and be fine with. I feel like London is a very, very stable city, whereas I feel like every city in America has this, like, we're about to explode if something goes wrong moment, and that could be the media tricking me, but it feels a little less congruent, which is great for short to medium term. But in the long run, you can see why a lot of Americans choose not to live in big cities. But it's a shame, because I love big cities. Speaking of things that I love, Sam Bauer has a really great comment, because he says, "I think level 0 should be the water level. What do you think about that?" And as you can tell, Sam has very strong opinions about water, because they are a watermelon. Wow, how delightful. So, here's the interesting thing about this comment. It's really, really fun in, you know, like in theory. However, when you think about what 1.18 is doing, where they're moving the bottom layer down to y-64. The reason they're choosing to do that is because they want to preserve the existing layer heights. So here's a diagram I've drawn to show 1.17, the water's at y64 and the bottom of the world's at y0, and then in 1.18, the water's at y64, but the bottom is at -64, so that your existing world will still keep the existing coordinates. Your, you know, layer 10 won't move up to being layer 74. It makes a lot of sense. And your theory is just like, what if we kept what if we entirely, you know, we kept the minus system, but we made it way bigger and also ruined people's things? So here's what it would look like after that. All your coordinates would change, but there's one huge benefit, and the huge benefit is that water would be y0. Anytime you're in the minus, you know you're below sea level. Anytime you're in the positive, you know you're above sea level by that number of meters. You could be up to 256, because that would be the new, you know, height limit above water. And there's so many things I love about this concept. I genuinely do think that if Minecraft was going from the ground up, that this is the objective best idea. However, I think playing around with people's existing worlds is something they've said they don't want to do. They don't want to mess up your coordinates, and they would be moving all of them down by 128 blocks. Oh, sorry, only down by 64 blocks. You know, I guess it's okay then. But no, I can see why they did this. However, I love your idea, Sam Bauer, and it's something I love almost as much as Liam Holcroft's comment, because they say, on a similar note to political slogans, "I hate the censorship in Minecraft. I understand that Mojang are thinking about protecting children, but I do not play with any kids, so why should my own language be censored in my own personal worlds? And this is a really good point, in my opinion, that like, wait, yeah, even if there are no children in your world, you don't have children, you don't own children, you don't intend to play with children, there are no children within a 500 square foot radius of you, and you don't have an internet connection. But if you're playing Minecraft and you're really enthusiastic about your favorite bird, and so you want to say, yeah, I love them, you know what Minecraft's gonna do? Minecraft is gonna say no. What if a child sees that praise of your favorite type of bird? What if, you know, what if your second favorite type of bird, then you're like, okay, I think they're like fine, you know, I'd like to mention that. It's like, oh no, that's not okay, because again, a child might see that one day, and the censorship is pretty aggressive, it does have to be said. Why is this true on a solo world? Actually, I think this is for Bedrock. Can you do this in Java? Huh. So to move away from the Java Bedrock differences, which apparently exist there, I think it does have to be mentioned that, yeah, you are losing out objectively for something that is not helping anybody. However, this is a thing that kind of happens on the wider societal level. There are all sorts of ways that children need to be protected that inconvenience all sorts of adults, even adults who have no children or caring for children, anything whatsoever, because it is a very important community aspect, even though, you know, children in the ideal world should be managed by, you know, individual parents and adults. In reality, children are the collective village thing, which makes much less sense when it's not a village, it's not even a city or a country, but it's the international community being run by a multi-trillion-dollar company that decides that maybe it's safer that we get a few less emails from concerned parents that have left their children playing games and then get mad that they see signs you know, talking about things that they don't find fun. But it is the interesting rule we have. We have the weird rule where everyone has to protect children, not just the immediately involved people. And it's a concept I've always found interesting, this like communal responsibility that means that even if you don't have children, you ultimately are, you know, paying for other people's children. You ultimately are putting effort into people's children because they are our collective product. They are our collective future. Which is an interesting thing to think about. But that's why I wanted to move into this next comment, which I always enjoy because pets are like children but better. Have you heard a hamster scream at the top of its lungs? I haven't yet. And just you wait, your day will come, don't worry. But I heard a comment in a stream that I really enjoyed. It was from a stream regular that said something like, you know, pets are the new kids and plants are the new pets. And it really is true that, like, yeah, as a society, we are much less inclined to, let's just be honest, like, commit to a big responsibility. And so, you know, the responsibility tiers have gone down. Then instead of getting a pet, you get a plant. Instead of getting a child, who can deal with that and all the problems that come with that? Just get yourself a dog. If you look at, you know, wealthy areas, you know, places where people are comfortable enough to have children, you'll find that in a lot of cases, it's people with dogs, and it's people who have decided to pick up a cat together because it is a shared responsibility. It's kind of like a child, except it's not. And I think it's really interesting because the declining fertility rates that we have in the Western world probably are a part of what also leads to a lot of dissatisfaction. People are finding themselves in relationships at a much lower rate, and those relationships are much less stable and committed than maybe you could argue in the past. And there's so many great benefits of that in the short term. But one of the things that we kind of need from the world is fulfillment. And I was speaking about this with Olraf, you know, yesterday, but I want to kind of reiterate it today that, like, yeah, people do feel like there is a lack of meaning in your life, and a lot of meaning comes from adversity. And, you know, the great thing about pets is there is slightly less adversity than a child. And the great thing about a plant is there's a lot less adversity than a pet. However, ultimately, at some point, you have to question, like, maybe, you know, some of that meaning is good. And that's quite weird, because the solution to this is, like, what? Like, put yourself through unnecessary adversity? I don't know that that's true, but I do know it's, like, a societal issue that I think about a lot, and that none of you are thinking about right now, because all you're thinking is, really? He's draining an ocean, he's 10 hours in, and he's still doing more? And yes, that is a thing that you can choose to watch if you'd like to. I'd appreciate it if you did. I'd also appreciate it if you didn't, because thank you for watching this video all the way through. You are the hero this channel deserves. If you have any opinions, leave them in the comments, and I'll totally ignore them because there's too many comments on most of the videos on this channel to read. However, you can leave a comment on the Let's Play, or you can leave one in a live stream if you really need to share something with me. And if you really want to share something with yourself, maybe you should share the secret to your happiness, because that is the greatest kept one of all. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.